You're facing a huge decision, a career change, a business problem, a personal crisis. You need advice, but the people around you don't understand. They see your situation through their own limited lens, colored by their own fears and experiences. What if you could assemble the greatest minds in history in a private room and ask them for their direct counsel? What would Abraham Lincoln tell you about leadership in your moment of doubt? What would Thomas Edison tell you about persistence when you're ready to give up? What would Marie Curie tell you about breaking through barriers that seem insurmountable? Most people rely on their own limited perspective to solve their problems, which is why they get the same limited results. They circle the same mental territory, trapped within the boundaries of their own experience and conditioning. They ask friends who share their limitations, consult experts who don't know their unique situation, or worse, they simply guess and hope for the best. But Napoleon Hill, in a chapter many overlook in his revolutionary work, revealed his most personal and powerful technique, the creation of an invisible counsel. This wasn't just another success principle he observed in others. This was his own secret method, one he hesitated to share for years because he feared ridicule. The pain of facing complex problems alone is more than just uncomfortable. It's limiting your potential in ways you cannot even perceive. When you're trapped in your own mental echo chamber, you can only access the solutions that already exist within your current level of consciousness. You need perspectives that transcend your current understanding, wisdom that comes from experiences you haven't lived, courage drawn from battles you haven't fought. The promise I'm making to you today is profound. You will learn a practical method for programming your subconscious mind with the qualities of your greatest heroes. This isn't about positive thinking or visualization. This is about creating a systematic process that allows you to access a higher level of wisdom and creativity on demand. You'll discover how to tap into what Hill called infinite intelligence through the borrowed genius of those who've already mastered the challenges you face. By the end of this journey, you'll possess a tool so powerful that Hill himself credited it as the primary source of every major breakthrough in his life. Napoleon Hill wasn't just another self-help author. He was the man who spent 25 years studying the minds of the world's most successful people, from Andrew Carnegie to Henry Ford, from Theodore Roosevelt to Thomas Edison. He didn't just interview them. He dissected their thinking patterns, analyzed their decision-making processes, and decoded the mental habits that separated them from the masses. What he discovered wasn't just a collection of success tips, it was a science of achievement, and at its core was this remarkable technique. Here is the pact I'm making with you. In this video, you will learn the step-by-step process for building your own invisible counsel, a mental board of directors to guide you in your life's most important decisions. This isn't metaphorical or abstract. You'll receive the exact methodology, the specific steps, and the crucial refinements that transform this from an interesting idea into a life-changing practice. You'll understand not just what to do, but why it works, how to avoid the pitfalls, and most importantly, how to make it uniquely yours. But I must warn you, Hill claimed this was the primary method he used to develop his sixth sense or creative intuition, but he also warned that the technique is completely useless if you make one common imaginative mistake. This mistake is so subtle that most people who attempt the technique fall into it without realizing, rendering their efforts ineffective. I'll reveal that critical pitfall in Part 4, along with the precise correction that activates the technique's full power. Before we begin, I want you to comment below with the one person, living or dead, you would most want advice from. This simple act of choosing begins to prime your mind for what's coming. The invisible counsel is not about channeling spirits or engaging in mystical practices. Let me be absolutely clear about this fundamental point. What we're discussing is a highly advanced and personalized form of autosuggestion that operates on proven psychological principles. When you focus intently on the lives and characteristics of great individuals, you are doing something far more sophisticated than simple admiration or hero worship. You are actively impressing their key qualities, courage, persistence, integrity, creativity, directly onto your subconscious mind through a process of deliberate mental conditioning. Your subconscious mind, which controls 95% of your daily actions and decisions, doesn't distinguish between real and vividly imagined experiences. This is why a nightmare can make your heart race and your palms sweat, even though you're safely in bed. When you consistently expose your subconscious to the thought patterns, decision-making frameworks, and character traits of exceptional individuals, something remarkable happens. Your mind begins to adopt these patterns as its own, creating new neural pathways that didn't exist before. Think of it this way. Every great person you admire succeeded because they developed specific mental models for interpreting and responding to the world. Einstein saw the universe through the lens of relativity and interconnection. Leonardo da Vinci perceived reality as an endless puzzle waiting to be decoded through observation and experimentation. When you study these individuals deeply and engage with them imaginatively, you're not just learning about them, you're installing their mental software into your own operating system. The process works through what psychologists call cognitive modeling. Just as children learn language and behavior by mimicking their parents, your subconscious mind learns new ways of thinking by mimicking the mental patterns of those you focus on intensely. But unlike childhood learning, which happens unconsciously and randomly, the invisible counsel technique allows you to consciously choose which qualities and capabilities you want to develop. This is where the technique becomes truly powerful. By creating a council of diverse minds, each representing different strengths and perspectives, you're essentially building a multi-dimensional problem-solving apparatus within your own consciousness. When you face a challenge, you're no longer limited to your single perspective. Instead, you can access the courage of Churchill, the innovation of Tesla, the strategic thinking of Sun Tzu, all synthesized through your own unique consciousness. The beauty of this approach is that it works with, not against, your brain's natural tendencies. Your mind is already constantly creating internal dialogues and imaginary scenarios. How many times have you rehearsed conversations in your head or imagined different outcomes to situations? The invisible counsel technique simply harnesses this natural capacity and directs it toward a specific, empowering purpose. What makes this different from simple visualization or positive thinking is the depth of engagement required. You're not just picturing successful people or repeating affirmations, you're entering into a dynamic relationship with carefully constructed mental representations based on deep study and understanding. These representations become so sophisticated that they can surprise you with insights you didn't consciously know you possessed. Your subconscious mind contains far more wisdom and creative potential than your conscious mind can access directly. It processes millions of bits of information that never reach your awareness, recognizes patterns too complex for logical analysis, and makes connections across vast networks of memory and experience. The invisible counsel technique creates a bridge between your conscious intentions and your subconscious resources. When you pose a question to your imaginary counsel, you're really asking your subconscious to process that question through multiple sophisticated filters simultaneously. Each council member represents a different processing style, a different value system, a different approach to problem solving. Your subconscious then synthesizes these perspectives and presents the result as advice from your council members. This isn't self-deception, it's self-empowerment. You're not pretending that dead historical figures are actually speaking to you. You're using their lives and achievements as templates to unlock dormant potentials within your own mind. Every human brain contains the same basic structures and capabilities. What differs is how these capabilities are developed and directed. The technique also leverages what neuroscientists call embodied cognition, the principle that our thoughts are shaped by our physical and imaginal experiences. When you vividly imagine sitting across from Abraham Lincoln, your brain activates many of the same regions that would fire if you were actually in the presence of someone you deeply respect. This creates a state of heightened receptivity and cognitive flexibility. Furthermore, by regularly convening your counsel, you're establishing what Hill called synthetic imagination, the ability to arrange old concepts, ideas, and plans into new combinations. This is different from creative imagination, which involves direct inspiration. Synthetic imagination is what allows you to take the wisdom of the past and apply it to the challenges of the present in novel ways. The cumulative effect of this practice is profound. Over time, the qualities you admire in your council members begin to feel less foreign and more familiar. You find yourself naturally thinking, what would Marcus Aurelius do in moments of ethical challenge? Or how would Maya Angelou express this when struggling to communicate? These aren't external impositions on your personality, they're expansions of it. Let me share with you an analogy that will crystallize why this technique is so powerful. Think of yourself as the CEO of a major corporation, except this corporation is your life. No successful CEO makes critical decisions in isolation. They surround themselves with a carefully selected board of directors, each member chosen for their specific expertise and perspective. They have a CFO for financial decisions, a COO for operational challenges, a CMO for marketing strategies. Each board member brings decades of specialized experience to the table. Now imagine if you could assemble a board of directors for your life consisting of the greatest minds in human history. Not just successful business people, but philosophers who've pondered life's deepest questions, warriors who've faced impossible odds, artists who've expressed the inexpressible, scientists who've decoded nature's secrets. The invisible counsel technique allows you to create exactly this, a mental board of advisors with unlimited expertise, available 24 hours a day, requiring no salary, no scheduling, no travel. But this board is even more powerful than a traditional corporate board because it operates at the level of consciousness itself. When a real board member gives advice, you still have to filter it through your own understanding and biases. When your invisible counsel provides guidance, it's already pre-filtered through your subconscious understanding, emerging as insights perfectly tailored to your unique situation and capabilities. Consider the specialized expertise you can access. Abraham Lincoln as your specialist in integrity and moral leadership, someone who held a nation together through its darkest hour while maintaining unwavering ethical principles. Thomas Edison as your specialist in persistence and innovation, a man who failed 10,000 times to invent the light bulb and called each failure a successful discovery of what doesn't work. Marie Curie as your specialist in breaking barriers and maintaining scientific rigor despite overwhelming opposition. Each council member represents not just their achievements, but their entire approach to life. When you consult with Napoleon Bonaparte about strategy, you're not just getting military tactics, you're accessing a mind that could see 12 moves ahead, that understood how to turn disadvantage into advantage, that knew how to inspire ordinary people to achieve extraordinary things. When you consult with Buddha about inner peace, you're accessing 2,500 years of accumulated wisdom about the nature of suffering and the path to liberation. The beauty of this mental board of directors is that it can evolve with your needs. Facing a creative block? Add Leonardo da Vinci or Frida Kahlo to your council. Dealing with injustice? Bring in Martin Luther King Jr. or Harriet Tubman. Need to understand complex systems? Invite Buckminster Fuller or Marie Curie. Your board can be as dynamic and diverse as the challenges you face. This isn't about hero worship or placing these figures on unreachable pedestals. It's about recognizing that every great achievement in human history came from a human mind, a mind fundamentally similar to yours. The same neurons, the same neurotransmitters, the same basic architecture. What made these individuals exceptional wasn't supernatural ability but developed capacity. By studying them deeply and engaging with them imaginatively, you're developing similar capacities within yourself. The corporate board analogy extends even further. In business, board members often challenge the CEO, asking difficult questions and pointing out blind spots. Your invisible counsel can serve the same function. When you're about to make a decision based on fear, your imaginary Churchill might challenge you about courage. When you're taking an ethical shortcut, your internal Marcus Aurelius might question your integrity. This creates what systems theorists call a negative feedback loop, a self-correcting mechanism that keeps you aligned with your highest values and greatest potential. Instead of waiting for external criticism or failure to correct your course, you have an internal guidance system constantly providing course corrections. This is proactive wisdom rather than reactive learning. Moreover, just as a corporate board brings diverse perspectives to prevent groupthink, your invisible counsel ensures you don't get trapped in a single way of seeing the world. The scientist balances the artist, the warrior balances the philosopher, the revolutionary balances the traditionalist. This diversity of perspective is what allows for breakthrough thinking. The council also serves another crucial function that mirrors corporate governance: accountability. When you know you'll need to report your actions to your imaginary board, you naturally elevate your standards. Would you want to tell Benjamin Franklin you wasted another day? Would you want to explain to Helen Keller that something was too difficult? This internal accountability is far more powerful than external pressure because it's aligned with your own chosen values. Think about the collective wisdom you're accessing. If each of your council members lived an average of 60 years and you have 9 members, that's 540 years of accumulated experience. But it's more than that. It's the distilled essence of those years, the key lessons and insights extracted and refined through biography, history, and analysis. You're not getting their everyday thoughts, but their greatest insights. The technique also addresses one of the fundamental limitations of real mentorship: availability. You can't call Warren Buffett whenever you have an investment question. You can't schedule a session with Carl Jung when you're facing a psychological challenge. But your invisible counsel is always available, always prepared, always focused entirely on your growth and success. Finally, this mental board of directors operates at the speed of thought. In the time it would take to schedule a meeting with even one real advisor, you can convene your entire council, present your challenge, receive multiple perspectives, and synthesize a solution. This immediacy is crucial in our fast-paced world, where opportunities and challenges arise suddenly and demand quick but wise responses. The crucial first step in building your invisible counsel is not selection, but preparation through deep study. You cannot simply pick names from history like choosing items from a menu. This is where most people fail before they even begin. They select council members based on superficial knowledge or general reputation rather than intimate understanding. To make this technique work, you must become a scholar of your chosen counselors, diving deep into their lives, understanding their struggles, and most importantly, identifying the specific character traits that you wish to emulate. This research phase is not optional busy work. It's the foundation upon which the entire technique rests. Your subconscious mind requires raw material to construct these mental advisors. The richer and more detailed your understanding, the more sophisticated and useful your council members become. Think of it like programming a computer. The quality of the output depends entirely on the quality of the input. If you feed your subconscious vague impressions and Wikipedia summaries, you'll get vague and generic advice in return. Begin with primary sources whenever possible. Read the actual words your chosen advisors wrote, not just what others wrote about them. If you're adding Marcus Aurelius to your council, read his Meditations, his private journal never meant for publication, where he revealed his true thoughts and struggles. If you're choosing Einstein, read his letters to friends where he expressed doubts and revealed his thinking process, not just his scientific papers. These intimate glimpses into their minds provide the texture and nuance your subconscious needs. Pay special attention to their failures and struggles. How did Lincoln handle the death of his son while leading a nation through civil war? How did Curie continue her research after her husband's tragic death? How did Mandela maintain his vision through 27 years of imprisonment? These moments of crisis reveal character more than any success story. They show you not just what your advisors achieved, but how they thought and felt during their darkest hours. Look for patterns in their decision-making. Every great individual had a unique way of approaching problems. Tesla would visualize inventions in complete detail before ever building them. Darwin would list pros and cons in elaborate charts when making personal decisions. Carnegie would ask himself, "What is the worst that could happen?" and then mentally accept that outcome before proceeding. These thinking patterns are what you're really after, not just inspiration, but practical mental models you can apply. Study their daily routines and habits. Genius isn't just about grand moments of inspiration, It's about consistent daily practices. Franklin's 13 virtues and daily schedule, Kant's walks so punctual that neighbors set their clocks by them, Angelo's practice of renting a hotel room just to write. These habits reveal the discipline behind the achievement. When you understand their daily practices, you can better imagine how they would approach your daily challenges. Understand their core values and non-negotiables. What principles would they never compromise? What beliefs sustained them through adversity? King's commitment to non-violence even when urged to take up arms, Socrates choosing death over abandoning his philosophical mission, Joan of Arc's unwavering faith, despite facing the stake. These defining moments reveal the bedrock of character that made them who they were. Research their relationships and how they influenced others. Great individuals rarely achieved alone. How did they build alliances, inspire followers, handle criticism? Lincoln's team of rivals, Eleanor Roosevelt's transformation from shy young woman to global advocate, Gandhi's ability to mobilize millions through moral authority alone. These interpersonal dynamics are crucial for understanding how to apply their wisdom to your own relationships. Don't neglect their cultural and historical context. Understanding the world they lived in helps you translate their wisdom to your current situation. The courage required for Harriet Tubman to lead slaves to freedom through the Underground Railroad takes on new dimension when you understand the Fugitive Slave Act and the rewards for her capture. This context helps you calibrate their advice to your modern challenges. Study their evolution and growth. Nobody is born great. They become great through specific experiences and choices. Track how your chosen advisors developed their key qualities. How did Churchill overcome his speech impediment to become one of history's greatest orators? How did Oprah transform childhood trauma into empathetic connection with millions? These transformation stories provide roadmaps for your own development. Look for their unique perspectives and mental frameworks. Each great mind had a distinctive way of seeing the world. Buckminster Fuller's synergistic thinking, seeing wholes rather than parts. Jung's concept of the collective unconscious, seeing individual psychology as connected to universal patterns. These unique lenses become new ways for you to perceive your own challenges. Collect specific quotes that resonate with you, but go beyond surface inspiration. Understand the context in which these words were spoken or written. When Churchill said, "Never give in," he was speaking to students during the darkest days of World War II, when Britain stood alone against Nazi Germany. This context transforms a simple phrase into a profound testament of courage. Study their mistakes and what they learned from them. Even your heroes were human and fallible. Einstein's resistance to quantum mechanics, Washington's early military defeats, Disney's first business bankruptcy, these failures humanize your council members and make their eventual success more relevant to your own journey. Their mistakes become your lessons learned without the pain of personal experience. Document your research in a journal dedicated to your council. Write character profiles for each member, noting their key strengths, typical approaches to problems, favorite sayings, and defining moments. This written record serves two purposes. It deepens your understanding through the act of writing, and it provides reference material to review before council meetings. As you research, you'll naturally begin to feel a connection with your chosen advisors. You'll start to hear their voices in their writing, sense their personalities through their actions, understand their hearts through their choices. This emotional connection is not incidental, it's essential. The stronger your emotional resonance with your council members, the more powerfully they'll speak through your subconscious. Remember, you're not trying to become these people or copy them exactly. You're extracting principles and patterns that you can adapt to your own unique situation and personality. The goal is not imitation, but integration, taking the best of what they offered and making it part of your own enhanced capability. This preparation phase typically takes several weeks of dedicated study for each council member. This might seem like a significant investment of time, but consider the return. You're gaining access to centuries of wisdom, decades of experience, and proven strategies for success. The hours you invest in understanding these great minds will pay dividends for the rest of your life. Finally, Approach this research with genuine curiosity and respect. You're not just collecting information, you're entering into a relationship with some of history's most extraordinary individuals. The depth of your preparation determines the depth of wisdom you'll be able to access. Treat this phase as sacred work, because in a very real sense, you're preparing to meet with greatness. Now we arrive at the execution phase, the actual convening of your invisible council. This is where preparation transforms into practice, where research becomes revelation. The 5-step process I'm about to share with you is precise and deliberate. Each step builds upon the previous one, creating a structured yet flexible framework for accessing the collective wisdom you've assembled. This is not a casual visualization exercise. It's a disciplined practice that requires your full engagement and commitment. Step 1. Select your council with strategic precision. Choose between 5 to 9 individuals for your core council. Why this specific range? Fewer than 5 lacks the diversity of perspective you need, while more than 9 becomes unwieldy and dilutes the intimacy of the connection. Each member should represent a primary quality or expertise you wish to develop. Don't just choose your favorite historical figures. Select based on the specific challenges and growth areas in your life right now. Your selection should create a balanced council. If you're an entrepreneur, yes, include business titans like Carnegie or Jobs, but also add a philosopher for wisdom, an artist for creativity, a warrior for courage. The synergy between different types of excellence creates insights that no single perspective could generate. Write down each member's name and the primary quality they represent for you. Lincoln for integrity, Tesla for innovation, Angelo for expression, Marcus Aurelius for stoicism, Curie for persistence. Step 2. Create your council chamber with vivid detail. This is not just picking a random room in your imagination. You're creating a sacred space in your consciousness, a consistent meeting place that will become more real and powerful with each use. Design this room with intentionality. Is it a mahogany-paneled library with leather chairs and crackling fireplace? A modern conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking mountains? A Greek amphitheater under stars? The key is consistency and personal resonance. This room should feel like a place where important decisions are made, where wisdom is shared, where transformation occurs. Include specific details that make it memorable: the texture of the table, the quality of light, the temperature of the air. Some practitioners include symbolic objects: a globe representing universal perspective, an hourglass representing time's value, a mirror representing self-reflection. These details aren't frivolous. They're anchors that help your mind return to this space quickly and completely. Place chairs for each council member in a specific arrangement, perhaps a round table suggesting equality, or a U-shape with you at the head as chairman. Assign consistent seats to each member. Einstein always to your right, Mandela across from you, Roosevelt to your left. This consistency helps your subconscious quickly reconstruct the scene and move past setup to actual dialogue. Step 3. Convene the meeting with formal intention. The ideal time for these meetings is just before sleep, when your conscious mind is relaxed but still alert, and your subconscious is becoming more active. This liminal state between waking and sleeping is when the veil between conscious and unconscious is thinnest. Lie down comfortably, close your eyes, and take several deep breaths to center yourself. Now, see yourself approaching your council chamber. Don't rush, walk slowly, feeling the anticipation of the meeting ahead. Open the door with deliberation. See your council members already assembled, turning to acknowledge your arrival. This is crucial. They are waiting for you. You are the chairman, the convener, the one they've gathered to serve. See them clearly, not as statues or paintings, but as living, breathing presences. Notice their postures, their expressions, the unique energy each brings to the room. Take your seat with the gravity appropriate to this moment. You're about to engage with the greatest minds in history about your life's important matters. Feel the weight of this privilege and responsibility. Look at each member individually, making eye contact, nodding in acknowledgement. You might even verbally, in your mind, thank them for gathering. This formal opening creates the psychological container for what follows. Step 4. Present your problem with clarity and vulnerability. State your challenge or question aloud in your mind, speaking as if addressing a real board of directors. Be specific, honest, and complete. Don't hide behind vague generalities or false bravado. These are your advisors. They can only help to the degree you're transparent with them. Frame your issue with context. I'm facing a decision about whether to leave my secure job to start my own business. I have 6 months of savings, a solid business plan, but a family depending on me. The opportunity feels time-sensitive, but the risk is substantial. The more precise your presentation, the more targeted the counsel you'll receive. Don't just dump problems. Present them as a CEO would to a board, with relevant facts, constraints, and desired outcomes. Sometimes it helps to prepare this presentation in advance, even writing it out before the meeting. This ensures you don't waste the counsel's time, your subconscious processing power, with rambling or confusion. Remember, clarity of question leads to clarity of answer. If you're confused about what you're asking, the responses will be equally muddled. Step 5. Seek counsel by engaging each member individually. This is where the technique becomes truly powerful. Turn to each council member in sequence and ask for their specific perspective based on their primary quality or expertise. Address them formally and respectfully. Mr. Edison, given your experience with persistence through failure, how should I approach the repeated rejections I'm facing? Then, and this is absolutely critical, be quiet and receptive. Don't force an answer or put words in their mouths. Allow an impression, feeling, or idea to arise. It might come as words you seem to hear, or as a feeling, an image, a memory, or simply a knowing. Your subconscious will communicate in its own language, which might not always be verbal. Einstein might respond with a visual metaphor, Angelo with a feeling of courage, Churchill with a surge of determination. The response might surprise you. Your imaginary Lincoln might challenge your ethics in ways you didn't expect. Your internal Curie might point out logical flaws in your thinking. This is good. It means you're accessing perspectives beyond your conscious limitations. Don't argue or defend, simply receive. You can evaluate and integrate later. Right now, your job is to listen with every fiber of your being. Move around the table systematically, giving each member time to contribute. Some might have more to say about certain issues than others. That's natural. You wouldn't expect identical input from such diverse minds. Notice not just what they say, but how they say it. Churchill's advice might come with bombastic certainty, while Buddha's arrives with gentle questioning. These tonal differences are part of the message. As the meeting concludes, thank your counsel formally. This closure is important. It signals to your subconscious that the formal processing is complete and integration can begin. See yourself leaving the chamber, knowing you can return whenever needed. Don't immediately analyze what occurred. Let the insights percolate through your consciousness naturally. The post-meeting period is as important as the meeting itself. Keep a journal by your bedside to capture any insights that arise upon waking. Often, the most profound revelations come hours or days after the council meeting. As your subconscious continues processing the dialogue, you might find yourself suddenly knowing what to do while showering, or having a dream that clarifies everything, or simply waking with a decision made. Don't strain for immediate answers or dramatic revelations. Sometimes the council's influence is subtle, a slight shift in perspective, a new question you hadn't considered, a feeling of confidence where there was doubt. Trust the process. Your subconscious is far more intelligent than your conscious mind realizes, and it's working on your challenge even when you're not actively thinking about it. With practice, these meetings become increasingly vivid and productive. Hill reported that after months of practice, his council members began to display individual characteristics he hadn't consciously given them. Lincoln would make jokes. Napoleon would pace when agitated. Emerson would quote poetry. This isn't supernatural. It's your subconscious becoming increasingly sophisticated in its use of these archetypal representations. Now we must address the fatal mistakes that render this powerful technique impotent in the hands of most who attempt it. These aren't minor inefficiencies. They're fundamental errors that completely block the mechanism through which the invisible counsel operates. The first and most devastating mistake, the one I warned you about at the beginning, is approaching this technique with passive imagination. This single error has caused more failure with the invisible counsel than all other mistakes combined. Passive imagination means simply picturing your heroes in a room like you're looking at a photograph or watching a movie where you're merely an observer. You visualize Lincoln sitting in a chair, Edison at a table, Curie standing by a window, static figures in a mental diorama. This is not the technique. This is daydreaming, and it will produce nothing more than pleasant feelings of inspiration that quickly fade. The invisible counsel requires active imagination, where you are a full participant in a dynamic interaction. The difference between passive and active imagination is the difference between watching a cooking show and actually preparing a meal. One entertains you, the other feeds you. In active imagination, you are the chairman of the board, the conductor of the orchestra, the director of the play. You must speak, question, challenge, and most importantly, create space for response. You're not observing a council meeting, you're conducting one. Think of it this way: your subconscious mind is like a sophisticated computer, but it only runs the programs you actively execute. Passive imagination is like having powerful software installed, but never clicking run. Active imagination initiates the program, engages the processing power, and generates output. Without your active participation, your questions, your emotional engagement, your expectant listening, the counsel remains dormant potential rather than active assistance. This requirement for active participation extends to every aspect of the technique. You must actively walk into your council chamber, not just appear there. You must actively greet each member, not just note their presence. You must actively present your challenge with the emotional weight it carries in real life, not just mention it casually. And most critically, you must actively create the space for their responses, maintaining an expectant silence that invites wisdom to emerge. The second fatal mistake is expecting a supernatural event, waiting for literal voices, visible apparitions, or otherworldly experiences. This expectation not only sets you up for disappointment, but actually blocks the subtle channels through which your subconscious communicates. When you're straining to hear an audible voice, you miss the quiet knowing that arises. When you're looking for a ghostly figure, you overlook the impression that forms in your mind's eye. This technique operates through psychological, not paranormal mechanisms. The voices of your counsel are your own subconscious mind, speaking through the filters and frameworks you've created through deep study. Expecting supernatural phenomena is like planting a seed and then digging it up every day to see if it's growing. The very expectation disrupts the natural process. Your subconscious communicates through subtle channels: intuitions, feelings, sudden insights, creative connections, symbolic images. Some practitioners become so focused on having a mystical experience that they unconsciously manufacture one, creating elaborate fantasies that feel meaningful in the moment but provide no practical value. They mistake emotional intensity for genuine insight, confusing the thrill of imagination with the wisdom of integrated knowledge. Real council meetings might feel quite ordinary while they're happening, with the profound insights only becoming apparent later. The third fatal mistake is lack of preparation, choosing council members you know nothing substantial about. This is like trying to have a conversation with someone in a language you don't speak. Your subconscious cannot create something from nothing. It needs raw material, facts, stories, patterns, quotes, experiences, to construct these internal advisors. Selecting Einstein because he was smart or Cleopatra because she was powerful, without understanding the specific nature of their intelligence or power, gives your subconscious nothing to work with. This mistake often stems from impatience or laziness. People want the benefits of the technique without investing in the foundational work. They think they can shortcut the process by choosing famous names and letting their imagination fill in the blanks. But imagination without information produces fantasy, not wisdom. It's like expecting to dream in French without ever studying the language. Your brain simply doesn't have the necessary patterns to construct meaningful communication. The depth of your preparation directly determines the depth of insight available to you. If you know only that Lincoln was president during the Civil War, that's the level at which he can advise you. But if you understand his melancholic temperament, his habit of writing letters he never sent to release anger, his ability to find humor in darkness, his strategic use of delay in decision-making, now you have a multidimensional advisor capable of nuanced guidance. Another critical error is treating the counsel as entertainment rather than a disciplined practice. Some people convene their counsel casually, whenever they're bored or curious, without specific purpose or formal structure. They treat it like a game or a creative writing exercise. This casual approach trains your subconscious to treat the counsel casually, producing responses that are creative but not necessarily wise or useful. The counsel requires the same respect and preparation you would bring to meeting with actual mentors. You wouldn't waste Warren Buffett's time with vague questions or show up unprepared to a session with a high-level coach. The fact that your counsel exists in consciousness rather than consensus reality doesn't diminish the respect and preparation required. In fact, it demands more discipline because there's no external accountability to keep you focused. Some practitioners make the mistake of arguing with their counsel or trying to control the responses. When Lincoln challenges their ethics, they mentally make him agree instead. When Einstein points out logical flaws, they imagine him validating their position. This is not accessing wisdom. It's using the counsel as an echo chamber for your existing beliefs. The whole point is to access perspectives beyond your current limitations. If you're controlling the responses, you're just talking to yourself with extra steps. Others fail by constantly changing their counsel composition, adding and removing members based on mood or immediate need. While some evolution is natural and healthy, constantly reshuffling your advisors prevents the deep relationship necessary for profound insight. It's like changing therapists every session. You never get past surface interactions to real breakthrough. Your counsel members need time to develop in your consciousness, to become more than historical facts and into living presences. A subtle but significant mistake is approaching the counsel from a place of desperation rather than empowerment. If you come begging for rescue, seeing yourself as helpless and hoping the counsel will save you, you're positioning yourself as subordinate to your own mental constructions. Remember, you are the chairman. You're seeking counsel, not salvation. The counsel serves you, not the other way around. This might seem like a minor distinction, but it fundamentally affects how your subconscious processes the interaction. Finally, many people fail by expecting immediate dramatic results from their first session. They convene the counsel once, don't receive clear guidance, and abandon the practice. This is like going to the gym once and concluding exercise doesn't work because you're not immediately transformed. The invisible counsel is a practice that deepens over time. Your first sessions might feel awkward, forced, or unproductive. This is normal. Your subconscious needs time to develop these pathways, to become fluent in this form of communication. Let me share with you Napoleon Hill's own startling experience with this technique, which reveals its ultimate potential when practiced with dedication and precision. After years of nightly counsel meetings, Hill reported that his imaginary figures began to develop characteristics and personalities beyond what he had consciously assigned them. They would interrupt each other during discussions, display unexpected emotions, and most remarkably, provide insights that genuinely surprised him. Lincoln would occasionally make jokes, something Hill hadn't programmed. Emerson would quote poetry Hill had never read. Napoleon would sometimes disagree with strategies Hill was certain he would endorse. This phenomenon isn't supernatural, but rather demonstrates the sophisticated capacity of a well-trained subconscious mind. After sufficient practice, your brain begins to run these personality simulations with such complexity that they become semi-autonomous within your consciousness. They operate according to their own internal logic, based on the deep patterns you've absorbed through study, but integrated in ways your conscious mind couldn't predict. This is the ultimate expression of what psychologists call autonomous complexes, organized patterns of thought and behavior that operate independently within your psyche. Hill became so concerned about this development that he suspended the practice for several months, fearing he was losing touch with reality. But he noticed something remarkable during this hiatus. His creativity diminished, His problem-solving became more conventional, and his writing lost its inspired quality. He realized that far from being a sign of instability, the autonomous behavior of his counsel indicated that the technique had reached its full maturity. He had successfully installed multiple sophisticated perspectives that could operate independently within his consciousness. Here's a master tip that Hill discovered through decades of practice. Vary the times and contexts of your counsel meetings for different types of guidance. While bedtime meetings are ideal for deep psychological processing and creative problem-solving, morning sessions work better for strategic planning and practical decisions. The twilight consciousness before sleep accesses intuitive wisdom, while the fresh clarity of morning engages logical analysis. By varying your meeting times, you engage different aspects of your consciousness and receive more comprehensive guidance. Another advanced technique is to occasionally allow your council members to interact with each other, not just with you. Present a challenge and then observe as they discuss it among themselves. You might witness fascinating debates, perhaps Franklin and Tesla disagreeing about the role of systematic versus intuitive approaches to innovation, or Joan of Arc and Sun Tzu discussing the relationship between faith and strategy. These interactions reveal the complexity and contradictions within your own mind, helping you understand why certain decisions feel so difficult. Create specialized subcommittees within your council for specific areas of life. Perhaps Lincoln, Mandela, and Marcus Aurelius form your ethics committee. Tesla, Da Vinci, and Curie comprise your innovation board. Churchill, Napoleon, and Sun Tzu constitute your strategy council. When facing multifaceted challenges, you can convene different subcommittees for different aspects of the problem, then bring their recommendations to the full council for integration. Develop a practice of informal consultation throughout your day, not just in formal meetings. Once your council is well established, you can quickly check in with specific members during daily activities. Stuck in traffic? Have a brief conversation with Marcus Aurelius about patience. Facing a difficult conversation? Get a quick pep talk from Churchill. This informal access transforms your counsel from a nightly practice into a constant resource. Here's a powerful variation Hill didn't explicitly describe, but which follows naturally from his method. Reverse the roles occasionally. Instead of seeking advice, report to your counsel on actions you've taken and results you've achieved. This accountability practice dramatically elevates your performance. Knowing you'll need to report to Lincoln about your integrity, to Edison about your persistence, to Angelo about your self-expression naturally raises your standards throughout the day. Pay attention to the evolution of your counsel's communication style. Initially, their guidance might come primarily as words or concepts, but as the practice deepens, you might receive complete visions, symbolic dreams, or sudden knowings that bypass language entirely. Einstein might show you a visual metaphor that instantly clarifies a complex problem. Rumi might evoke a feeling that guides you more surely than any logical argument. These non-verbal communications often carry more information than words could convey. Document the accuracy and value of your counsel's guidance over time. Keep a journal not just of what guidance you receive, but how it plays out in real life. You'll likely discover that your counsel's batting average improves dramatically over time, as your subconscious becomes better at synthesizing information and pattern matching against the templates you've provided. This documentation also helps you identify which council members are most helpful for which types of challenges. Understand that resistance to the council's advice is often a sign that it's working correctly. If your counsel only tells you what you want to hear, you're not accessing wisdom beyond your current limitations. The discomfort you feel when Churchill challenges your courage or when Curie questions your intellectual rigor is the discomfort of growth. Lean into this resistance rather than avoiding it. It's precisely where breakthrough insights emerge. Master practitioners learn to recognize the different signatures of their council members' communication styles. Lincoln's advice often comes with a feeling of grave responsibility and moral weight. Tesla's insights arrive as sudden flashes of complete understanding. Maya Angelou's guidance carries an embodied emotional quality that you feel in your chest. These signatures help you distinguish genuine counsel communication from your own conscious thoughts or wishful thinking. Develop rituals that deepen your connection to the practice. Some practitioners keep physical reminders of their counsel members, a photo, a quote, a symbolic object, in their workspace or bedroom. Others begin each day by reading a passage from one counsel member's writings. These rituals aren't superstitious, they're psychological anchors that strengthen the neural pathways associated with your counsel. Learn to work with resistance and skepticism, both your own and others. You don't need to believe the counsel is real in any metaphysical sense for it to work. You only need to engage with the practice sincerely and observe the results. Skepticism can actually enhance the technique by ensuring you remain grounded and practical rather than drifting into fantasy. The goal isn't to convince anyone else of the technique's validity, but to develop a powerful tool for your own growth and decision-making. The invisible counsel technique, while presented by Napoleon Hill in the language of his era, aligns remarkably with several robust psychological theories that have emerged since his time. Carl Jung's concept of archetypal psychology provides perhaps the most compelling scientific framework for understanding how and why this technique works. Jung proposed that the human psyche contains universal patterns or archetypes, the wise old man, the hero, the creator, that exist in what he called the collective unconscious. When you create your invisible counsel, you're not inventing something new. You're activating archetypal patterns that already exist within your psychological structure. These archetypes aren't merely symbolic, they're functional psychological patterns that have evolved over millennia of human experience. The warrior archetype, for instance, isn't just an idea about courage. It's a complete behavioral and cognitive program that includes threat assessment, strategic thinking, protective instincts, and the ability to act decisively under pressure. When you deeply study a warrior figure like Joan of Arc or Sun Tzu and include them in your counsel, you're activating and personalizing this archetypal program within your own psyche. The process works through what Jung called active imagination, a technique he developed independently of Hill for engaging with unconscious contents. Jung discovered that when patients actively dialogued with figures from their dreams or imagination, they could access wisdom and perspectives unavailable to their conscious minds. He distinguished this from passive fantasy by noting that in active imagination, the imaginal figures often surprise the individual, saying or doing things unexpected, exactly what Hill reported with his own counsel. Modern neuroscience provides additional validation through the discovery of mirror neurons, specialized cells that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe others performing that action. These neurons don't distinguish between real and vividly imagined observations. When you deeply imagine interacting with Einstein, your brain activates neural patterns similar to those that would fire if you were actually learning from a brilliant physicist. This neurological mirroring is how we learn complex behaviors and thinking patterns from others. The concept of mental models, popularized by Charlie Munger and studied extensively in cognitive science, offers another lens for understanding the counsel's effectiveness. A mental model is a simplified representation of how something works that we use to understand and navigate the world. Every expert develops sophisticated mental models in their domain. An architect sees buildings as systems of forces and spaces. A chess master sees the board as patterns and potentials. By studying great figures deeply, you're essentially downloading their mental models into your own cognitive toolkit. Your invisible counsel becomes a collection of highly sophisticated mental models, each optimized for different types of problems. When you consult with Warren Buffett in your counsel, you're accessing mental models about value, patience, and compound interest. When you consult with Maya Angelou, you're accessing models about resilience, expression, and the power of story. The counsel technique provides a structured way to switch between these different models, applying the most appropriate lens to each challenge. The psychological principle of cognitive diversity explains why a counsel is more powerful than a single mentor. Research consistently shows that diverse groups outperform homogeneous ones in problem solving, even when the homogeneous groups have higher average ability. This is because different perspectives reveal different aspects of a problem and prevent cognitive blind spots. Your invisible counsel creates cognitive diversity within a single mind, allowing you to escape the echo chamber of your default thinking patterns. The technique also leverages what psychologists call the protégé effect, the phenomenon where teaching or explaining something deepens our own understanding. When you must articulate your challenges clearly enough for your counsel to understand, you often clarify them for yourself. When you imagine how different council members would approach your problem, you're forced to truly understand their perspectives, not just admire them superficially. Social cognitive theory, developed by Albert Bandura, demonstrates that we learn not just through direct experience, but through observing and modeling others. This vicarious learning is how children acquire complex behaviors without explicit instruction. The invisible counsel technique is essentially a sophisticated application of vicarious learning, where deep study substitutes for direct observation and active imagination substitutes for physical modeling. The counsel also engages what researchers call prospective memory, our ability to remember to perform intended actions in the future. When you regularly consult your counsel, you're not just solving immediate problems, you're programming future responses. The question, "What would Lincoln do?" becomes an automatic thought in ethical dilemmas. This isn't external imposition, but internalized wisdom, integrated into your automatic decision-making processes. From a neuroplasticity perspective, the regular practice of counsel meetings literally rewires your brain. Each time you engage with your counsel, you strengthen neural pathways associated with the qualities you're cultivating. The brain doesn't distinguish between real and imagined practice when it comes to building neural connections. This is why visualization is so effective for athletes and why your imaginary counsel can produce real psychological change. The technique also aligns with memory palace methods used since ancient Greece. By creating a consistent spatial environment, your counsel chamber, and populating it with memorable figures, you're leveraging spatial and visual memory, our strongest memory systems, to organize and access complex information. The counsel chamber becomes a three-dimensional filing system for wisdom, with each council member serving as a living folder of insights and strategies. Cognitive load theory helps explain why the counsel technique is more effective than simply trying to remember advice from books. When information is organized into meaningful chunks and associated with memorable figures, it requires less cognitive effort to access. Instead of trying to recall specific quotes or concepts, you simply ask, "What would Tesla say?" And the relevant information emerges naturally. The psychological concept of self-complexity also validates the counsel approach. Research shows that people with more complex self-concepts, those who see themselves as having multiple aspects rather than a single, simple identity, are more resilient and adaptable. The counsel technique develops self-complexity by giving you access to multiple perspectives and approaches within your own consciousness. You become not just yourself, but yourself with access to Lincoln's integrity, yourself with Churchill's courage, yourself with Curie's persistence. The technique even aligns with modern therapeutic approaches like internal family systems, which recognizes that the psyche naturally contains multiple sub-personalities or parts. The invisible counsel provides a structured, positive way to develop and integrate these internal parts, ensuring they're based on admirable models rather than traumatic experiences or limiting beliefs. Finally, the counsel technique embodies what psychologists call possible selves, our ideas about who we might become. These possible selves motivate current behavior and guide development. By regularly interacting with representations of greatness, you're constantly exposed to elevated possible selves, naturally raising your aspirations and standards. Let me share with you the profound transformation this technique created in Napoleon Hill's own life, serving as our primary case study for the power of the invisible counsel. Hill credits this single practice as the driving force behind his ability to overcome crushing poverty, multiple business failures, and personal tragedies to ultimately write Think and Grow Rich, one of the best-selling books of all time. When he began using the technique, he was a nobody, a failed law student, a divorced man struggling to feed his family. The counsel didn't just give him advice, it fundamentally rewired his consciousness for success. Hill's original council consisted of 9 men: Edison, Darwin, Lincoln, Burbank, Napoleon, Paine, Emerson, Ford, and Carnegie. Each meeting he would present his challenges: how to continue his research without funding, how to gain access to successful people, how to overcome his own limitations of education and connection. The council's guidance led him to specific strategies that seemed to come from beyond his conscious capabilities. Edison taught him to see failure as data. Lincoln showed him how to maintain integrity even when compromise seemed profitable. Carnegie revealed the importance of definiteness of purpose. But the most remarkable aspect of Hill's experience was how the council changed his behavior in real-world interactions. He reported that after months of nightly meetings, he found himself naturally expressing qualities he'd been cultivating through his imaginary advisors. In negotiations, he would channel Carnegie's understanding of human motivation. When facing rejection, Edison's persistence would automatically activate. During ethical dilemmas, Lincoln's moral clarity would guide him. The council hadn't just advised him, it had transformed him. Consider a modern application of this technique. Sarah, a graphic designer experiencing severe creative block while working on a career-defining project. Traditional brainstorming had failed, feedback from colleagues felt hollow, and deadline pressure was mounting. In desperation, she remembered reading about the invisible council and decided to try it. She assembled a council of 5 creative giants: Leonardo da Vinci for Renaissance versatility, Frida Kahlo for emotional authenticity, Steve Jobs for elegant simplicity, Maya Angelou for storytelling power, and Coco Chanel for timeless style. Sarah spent 2 weeks studying each figure intensively, not just their work, but their process, their struggles, their breakthroughs. She learned that Da Vinci kept notebooks where he drew the same subject hundreds of times from different angles. She discovered that Kahlo painted through physical agony, transforming pain into beauty. She understood how Jobs would simplify by asking, "What can we remove?" She absorbed Angelou's belief that there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. When Sarah convened her first council meeting, she presented her creative block honestly. "I'm designing a campaign for a children's hospital, and everything I create feels either too sad or falsely cheerful. I can't find the right emotional tone." Da Vinci suggested she spend a day at the hospital, sketching not the illness but the courage. Kahlo reminded her that authenticity comes from acknowledging both shadow and light. Jobs asked what she could remove to reveal the essential truth. Angelou whispered that every child there had a story of heroism. Chanel advised that true elegance is refusal, knowing what not to include. The breakthrough came not as a single revelation, but as a synthesis. Sarah realized she'd been trying to avoid the reality of sick children rather than honoring their experience. Her final design featured real children from the hospital as superheroes, not fantasy superheroes, but real ones, with IV poles as their staffs of power and bandages as their badges of courage. The campaign won multiple awards, but more importantly, it resonated deeply with both the children and their families. Sarah credits her council with not just solving a creative problem, but teaching her a new way to approach her craft. Another powerful example comes from Marcus, a startup founder facing a brutal decision: accept a buyout offer that would make him wealthy but potentially destroy his company's mission, or continue struggling with the risk of bankruptcy. His real-world advisors were split. Lawyers said take the money, employees begged him to maintain independence, investors pressured from both sides. Marcus assembled an emergency council: Warren Buffett for long-term thinking, Elon Musk for audacious vision, his grandmother who had built a small business through the Depression, Muhammad Ali for fighting spirit, and surprisingly, his future self at age 80. The council meeting was intense. Buffett reminded him that wealth without purpose is poverty. Musk challenged whether he was thinking big enough. Was there a third option he hadn't considered? His grandmother spoke about the dignity of building something that lasts beyond profit. Ali said champions aren't made by taking the easy fight, but it was his future self who provided the key insight. You won't remember the money. You'll remember whether you stayed true to why you started. Marcus rejected the buyout, but used the council's collective wisdom to devise a creative solution. He offered the potential buyer a partnership instead, maintaining control while gaining resources. The company thrived, eventually achieving both financial success and mission integrity. Marcus now convenes his council weekly, crediting them with every major strategic breakthrough. The technique has found particular resonance among artists and writers facing creative challenges. A novelist struggling with a complex character might convene a council of Shakespeare, Toni Morrison, and Dostoevsky. A musician seeking to evolve their sound might consult with Prince, Beethoven, and Björk. The council provides not just inspiration, but specific technical insights drawn from deep study of these masters' methods. Athletes have adapted the technique for performance enhancement. A marathon runner created a council of legendary endurance athletes, each representing different aspects of the sport: mental toughness, pacing strategy, recovery wisdom. During difficult training runs, she would imagine them running alongside her, offering encouragement and tactical advice. Her times improved dramatically, but more importantly, her relationship with discomfort transformed. Even therapists have begun incorporating variations of the technique with clients, helping them create councils of figures who embody qualities they wish to develop. A client struggling with assertiveness might study and then imaginatively consult with leaders known for their strength. Someone working through grief might create a council of figures who transformed loss into meaning. The technique provides a structured way to internalize positive models and access inner resources. The pattern across all these examples is consistent. The council doesn't just provide advice, it catalyzes transformation. By regularly engaging with representations of excellence, practitioners naturally elevate their own standards and capabilities. The imaginary becomes real through consistent practice, as neural pathways strengthen and new patterns of thought and behavior emerge. We have reached the summit of understanding, where all the elements of the invisible counsel technique synthesize into a single, powerful truth. This is the ultimate form of mentorship because it transcends every limitation of traditional guidance. You are not simply receiving advice from great minds. You are absorbing their essence, integrating their strengths, and evolving into a composite being who carries the best qualities of humanity's greatest achievers. This is not metaphorical. It is a literal rewiring of your neural architecture through deliberate practice. Consider what happens in traditional mentorship. You meet with someone perhaps once a month. They share their perspective based on their single life experience, and you attempt to translate their advice to your unique situation. The invisible counsel explodes these constraints. You have instant access to multiple perspectives, each representing decades or centuries of refined wisdom. Your mentors never tire, never judge, never have bad days. They're available at 3 a.m. during your darkest hour and at noon during your moment of triumph. But the true power lies deeper than convenience. Through the counsel, you're not just getting advice, you're developing the actual cognitive patterns that created that advice. When you deeply study Lincoln and regularly consult with his imaginary presence, you're not just learning his opinions, you're installing his decision-making framework, his moral reasoning process, his capacity to find wisdom in suffering. You're becoming more Lincoln-like in your neural functioning while remaining entirely yourself. This internalization of greatness operates through what we might call consciousness contagion. Just as spending time with pessimistic people makes you more negative, or being around athletes makes you more fitness conscious, immersing yourself in the thoughts and patterns of genius elevates your baseline consciousness. But unlike physical proximity, which is limited by geography and mortality, the counsel allows you to spend intimate time with the greatest minds across all history and culture. The synthesis creates something greater than the sum of its parts. When you combine Churchill's courage with Einstein's curiosity, Lincoln's integrity with Tesla's innovation, something new emerges, a unique configuration of excellence that has never existed before. You become a living synthesis of greatness, carrying forward the best of human achievement while adding your own unique contribution. This is how consciousness evolves, not through isolation, but through integration. You are never truly alone in your struggles, your dreams, or your decisions. This is the message of ultimate empowerment that the invisible counsel technique delivers. The wisdom of the ages is not locked away in dusty libraries or buried with the bones of the great. It lives as potential within your own consciousness, waiting to be activated through deliberate practice and sincere engagement. Every human who has ever achieved greatness has left behind a template, a pattern, a way of being that you can access and integrate. Think about the profound implications of this truth. The courage that carried Harriet Tubman through 19 trips on the Underground Railroad isn't gone. It exists as a pattern you can activate within yourself. The creativity that drove Leonardo da Vinci to see art in science and science in art isn't lost to time. It's a cognitive configuration you can develop. The resilience that enabled Mandela to emerge from 27 years of imprisonment without bitterness isn't unique to him. It's a capacity you can cultivate through deep study and practice. The counsel technique democratizes greatness. You don't need to be born into privilege to access the best mentorship. You don't need connections to meet with world-class advisors. You don't need wealth to afford coaching from masters. All you need is the willingness to study deeply, imagine actively, and practice consistently. The greatest minds in history are available to anyone with a library card and the discipline to use this technique. But here's what makes this truly empowering. You're not trying to become these people. You're not abandoning your identity to copy someone else. Instead, you're expanding your identity to include their best qualities while remaining fundamentally yourself. You're like a musician who learns from the masters, not to sound exactly like them, but to develop your own unique voice enriched by their influence. The counsel helps you become not Lincoln or Einstein or Angelo, but the version of yourself that carries their wisdom forward in your own unique expression. This is especially powerful for those who feel they lack mentors or role models in their immediate environment. Perhaps you're the first in your family to start a business, pursue higher education, or break free from destructive patterns. The invisible counsel ensures you're never without guidance. You can assemble advisors who faced similar challenges and emerged victorious. You can create a support system that transcends the limitations of your immediate circumstances. The technique also addresses one of the deepest human needs, the need to feel connected to something greater than ourselves. When you regularly convene with your counsel, you're joining a conversation that spans millennia. You're participating in the great human project of growth and achievement. You're adding your voice to a chorus that includes every person who has ever strived to be more than they were. This connection provides meaning and context that transforms even mundane challenges into part of a greater narrative. Remember, every member of your counsel was once where you are now, human, flawed, struggling with doubts and limitations. Lincoln battled severe depression. Edison was told he was too stupid to learn anything. Oprah was born into poverty and abuse. They didn't start as legends. They became legendary through choices, persistence, and growth. When you consult with them, you're not communing with unreachable gods, but with humans who found ways to transcend their limitations. If they could do it with the resources of their time, what can you achieve with the knowledge and tools available today? Here is my challenge to you. Not someday, not when you feel ready, but this week. Choose just 3 individuals for your initial counsel. Don't overthink this selection. Go with the 3 figures who immediately resonate with your current challenges and aspirations. Perhaps it's Marcus Aurelius for wisdom, Marie Curie for persistence, and Martin Luther King Jr. for courage. Or maybe it's your grandmother for groundedness, Nikola Tesla for innovation, and Maya Angelou for expression. The specific choices matter less than your commitment to begin. Dedicate 30 minutes to researching each council member, not casual browsing but focused study. Read a chapter from their biography, watch a documentary segment, find their actual words rather than others' interpretations. Look for the moments when they faced challenges similar to yours. Understand not just their victories but their process, their daily habits, their ways of thinking. Write down 3 specific qualities or strategies from each figure that you want to integrate into your own life. Then, before this week ends, hold your first council meeting about a specific current challenge you're facing. Not a vague desire for success, but a concrete decision or problem. Should you take that job offer? How do you handle that difficult relationship? What's the next step in your creative project? Present this challenge to your 3 advisors with the same seriousness you would bring to a meeting with living mentors. Ask each one directly for their perspective. Then, and this is crucial, sit in expectant silence and allow impressions to arise. I want you to notice something specific: the quality of thinking that emerges when you genuinely engage with this technique. Pay attention to the shift in perspective, the unexpected angles of approach, the solutions that seem to come from beyond your usual thought patterns. This isn't magic. It's your own consciousness operating at a higher level because you've given it better tools and frameworks. Document what you experience, not to prove anything to anyone else, but to recognize the resource you've just activated within yourself. Comment below with the insight or shift you experienced, however subtle. Did Lincoln challenge an assumption you didn't know you held? Did Tesla suggest an approach you hadn't considered? Did your grandmother remind you of a strength you'd forgotten? Share your experience, not for validation, but as a declaration of your commitment to this practice. By stating publicly that you've begun, you create accountability that will carry you forward. If you're ready to receive counsel from the greatest minds in history, if you're prepared to transform admiration into integration, if you're willing to accept that genius is not a birthright but a practice, then subscribe to the Master's Legacy and activate all notifications. This channel is more than content. It's a community of individuals committed to carrying forward the wisdom of the Masters. Every video is a new council member to study, a new pattern of excellence to integrate, a new aspect of your potential to activate. The meeting is about to begin. Your council is assembling, waiting for you to take your seat as chairman. The empty chairs around your mental table represent not absence but possibility. The possibility that you can access wisdom beyond your current limitations, that you can solve problems beyond your current capacity, that you can become someone beyond your current imagination. Napoleon Hill discovered this technique in the early 20th century, refined it through decades of practice, and passed it forward to us. Now it's your turn to take your seat at the table of greatness. The Masters are waiting. Your transformation is waiting. The only question is, are you ready to begin?